She wasn't born with a crown or grand treasures. No armies guarded her, no great power was hers. Just a little orphan, far from home, a gentle stranger in a mighty land. Yet she was gently chosen, not just by luck, nor only for her sweet looks. A tender purpose guided her, held safe behind quiet palace walls for this very special time. While kings sipped from shining gold cups and nobles whispered their plans in hushed rooms, a silent path was being laid. A path not for sharp swords or grand chariots, but for quiet fasting, deep faith, and the soft courage to speak when silence could bring great harm. Her name was Esther, sweet Esther. And this isn't just the tale of a queen. It's how a loving hand guided a whole people to safety through a hero so gentle, so unexpected. Long ago, in the time of King Xerxes, whose gentle rule reached across 127 lands, from sun-kissed India to distant Ethiopia. From his grand seat in Susa, his word was the law. To show his grandness, Xerxes held a splendid feast, lasting 180 days, welcoming all the important people, the princes and brave leaders from his wide empire. Golden cups sparkled, and royal wine flowed like a happy stream. When these 6 moons had passed, the king opened his palace doors to everyone in Susa, sharing a lovely 7-day banquet in his garden courtyard. Sweet wine was poured generously, with no end to its flow. At the same time, Queen Vashti held her own special feast for the ladies inside the palace walls. But on the 7th day, when the king's heart was light with wine, he asked a boastful thing, that Queen Vashti come before all the guests, wearing her shining royal crown, so her beauty could be admired. But Vashti, with quiet grace, said no. She would not let herself be shown to a boisterous crowd. The king's heart felt a sting. His own dear queen had gently said no in front of all. Feeling a mix of anger and hurt, Xerxes turned to his trusted wise men. One, named Memucan. He spoke, "All the women will hear of this, and perhaps not honor their husbands as before." So they gently urged the king to send Vashti away, and to send a message across all the lands, that every man should be the gentle head of his own home. The king agreed. A royal message was sent to every land, in every tongue, and Queen Vashti was no longer queen. But softly, behind what they could see, a loving hand had just begun to stir. As gentle days turned into weeks, King Xerxes' sternness softened, and he began to think of Queen Vashti again, her grace, her brave spirit, and the message that sent her away. Though the king's word could not be unsaid, her quiet absence stayed in his heart. Feeling the king's soft mood, his trusted friends offered a kind idea. Let lovely young maidens be brought from every distant land. After tender care to make them even more radiant, the king could choose a new queen to fill Vashti's place. The king agreed with a gentle nod. Messengers rode to all 127 lands, and sweet young women were gathered from every quiet corner of the empire, from sun-kissed India to gentle Ethiopia. Among these tender young souls was Hadassah, known by her sweet Persian name, Esther. A little Jewish orphan, she was raised by her dear cousin Mordecai, a kind man living in Susa. He had gently taught her to honor God and to keep her special heritage a quiet secret in that faraway land. Esther was brought to the palace and placed in the gentle care of Hegai, who watched over the women. Right away she shone bright, not by asking for grand things, but through her soft kindness and grace. A loving hand gave her favor in everyone's eyes, especially Hegai's. For 12 long moons, Esther, like all the women, was tenderly prepared for her one special moment before the king. When her turn arrived, she stepped into the king's room with quiet grace and a gentle strength, and when Xerxes saw her, his heart was deeply touched. The king loved Esther more than all the others. She won his sweet favor, and he gently placed the royal crown upon her head, making her queen in Vashti's place.
By the way, if you find any of these videos interesting or enjoyable, please consider subscribing.
A beautiful feast was held in her honor. A day of joy was announced, and sweet gifts were sent across the wide empire. But no one yet knew her gentle secret. She was a Jew. No one knew a loving hand had placed his dear servant in the palace, not to be served, but to bravely stand for his people. Esther kept living quietly in the king's grand home, still listening to Mordecai's wise words, just as she had when she was a little girl. Mordecai, meanwhile, spent his quiet days by the king's gate, a busy place where the city's gentle hum of life and royal helpers gathered. Though he was not a grand noble, a loving hand had placed him there for a special reason. One day, as Mordecai sat in his peaceful spot, he heard something that sent a shiver. Two of the king's kind guards, Bigthan and Teres, who watched the palace entrance, were speaking in low, troubled whispers. Their voices were soft, but filled with a hidden unhappiness. They were planning a sad, dark thing, to harm King Xerxes. What they thought to do was a great betrayal, a quiet act that could take away the most powerful man in the world. Mordecai didn't wait even a moment. He sent a gentle message right away to Queen Esther, who could now speak directly with the king. Esther softly shared the warning with Xerxes, making it clear the news came from dear Mordecai. A careful search began. The matter was looked at with great care, and the truth was gently brought to light. The two guards were indeed guilty. They had truly whispered together against the king, and by the laws of the land, such a deep betrayal brought swift, sad consequences. They were led away to the gallows. The king's precious life was saved, but the moment passed with no grand celebrations. Mordecai's part in finding this plot was written in the Book of the Chronicles, a royal book of important happenings kept close to the king. But, quite sweetly, no special gift was given, no public praise, no grand title, just a name in a book, softly marked into the empire's quiet memory. After some quiet time passed, King Xerxes raised Haman, an Agagite, to a very high place among his helpers. Everyone was asked to bow low to him, but dear Mordecai, with gentle strength, did not. Day after day, Haman saw this quiet refusal and felt a hot fire of anger grow within him. When he learned that Mordecai was a Jew, Haman's dislike turned into a dark cloud. He didn't just wish to vex Mordecai, he yearned to bring harm to all the gentle Jewish people across the wide empire. Haman cast lots, called Purim, to pick a sad day. Then he went to the king with words that were not quite true. "There is a certain people," he whispered, "scattered through all your lands. They live a little differently and do not follow your ways. It might not be best, my king, to let them stay." The king, with a soft nod, agreed, giving Haman his special ring. A royal message, a sad command, was sent to all 127 lands. On the 13th day of the 12th moon, every Jewish soul, young and old, was to be brought to an end. As the quick messengers carried this heavy news, Susa fell into a quiet sorrow. Cries of sadness filled the air among the Jewish people. When Mordecai heard of this terrible message, he gently tore his garments, put on rough sackcloth and ashes, and wept soft, bitter tears in the streets of Susa. Across the whole wide empire, the Jewish people fasted, grieved, and cried out, for their sad fate seemed sealed. When Esther heard that dear Mordecai was deep in sorrow, she sent a kind helper to him to gently ask why. Through this messenger, Mordecai softly urged her to go before the king and sweetly plead for her own people. But Esther's heart was a little afraid. She replied, "No one may come near the king without being called. The sad rule is death, unless he holds out his golden staff, and I haven't been called for 30 long days." Mordecai's answer carried back by the messenger, was strong yet full of care. Do not think you will be safe, even in the palace. If you stay quiet now, help will surely come from another gentle hand. But you and your dear family may face a sad end. And who can truly know? Perhaps you were
Go.
made
Gather
queen for
all
this
the dear
very
Jewish people in
special.
Susa.
Esther's
Fast for
gentle
me,
fear
please,
then
for
gave
3
way
long
to
days
quiet
and
trust.
nights.
She
I will go
replied,
to the king, even if it means I must leave this life. If I perish, I perish.
On the third day, dressed in her most beautiful royal robes, Esther, with a brave heart, stepped into the quiet inner court of the palace. The king, seeing her standing there so gently, reached out his golden staff to her. With a soft breath of relief and hope, Esther touched the shimmering tip of the staff. Then the king asked, with a warm, kind voice, "What is your heart's desire, sweet Queen Esther? Even up to half my kingdom it shall be gently given." Esther softly replied, "If it pleases my king, please come to a little feast I have prepared for you and for Haman." The king smiled, his heart gently curious about her kind invitation, and he sweetly agreed. And both he and Haman came to Esther's first quiet banquet. Yet, through the gentle meal, Esther did not speak of her deep wish. Instead, she watched the king with soft, searching eyes, waiting for just the right quiet moment. Before the feast ended, Esther offered another kind invitation. "Please, come again tomorrow, and then, my king, I will share my true, gentle request." The king's interest deepened, like a quiet pool, and Haman's thoughts wandered, both eager and a little unsure of what Esther's tender plea might be. That night, King Xerxes lay awake, his heart a little restless and troubled. Nothing seemed to bring quiet peace to his mind, not the royal wine nor the soft comforts of his palace. Yearning for a gentle change, he asked his kind servants to bring the book of the Chronicles, the special record of all the kingdom's gentle happenings. As the scribes read softly, the king's eyes gently caught a long-forgotten name, dear Mordecai's. The story told how Mordecai had quietly found a dark plan against the king's own life, a true act of care that had kept Xerxes safe from harm. But even with such a loving deed, Mordecai had never been given a reward. Deeply touched, Xerxes gently asked his trusted friends, "What special honor or kind thanks has been given to Mordecai for this?" His friends softly replied, "Nothing, my king, has been done for him." The king sat in quiet thought. How could such deep care go without a gentle thank you? Just then, at that very quiet moment, Haman stepped into the palace. He had come to ask the king for a sad permission to hang dear Mordecai on a gallows he had made. But before he could speak a word, the king gently called him closer. "Haman," the king softly said, "what lovely things should be done for the man the king wishes to truly honor?" Filled with proud thoughts, Haman imagined the king meant him. He then shared a detailed, grand plan. "Let this man be dressed in the king's own beautiful robes, which the king himself has worn. Let a royal crown be placed upon his head, and let him be led on the king's own horse through the city's gentle streets. A grand helper should ride before him, softly proclaiming, 'This is what is done for the man the king delights to honor.'" The king smiled a gentle smile and said, "Go at once. Dear Haman, do everything you..." Haman's face grew very pale, his heart beating with a quiet fear. He was gently made to carry out the honor he had dreamed for himself, but instead it was given to the one he disliked. With a humbled and heavy heart, Haman led Mordecai through the city's peaceful streets, softly telling everyone of his honor, just as he had said. When he returned to his home, his spirit felt broken. He told his dear wife and friends everything that had happened, his hurt and sorrow plain to see. They gently warned him, "If Mordecai is from the Jewish people, you will not be able to stand against him. You will surely come to a sad end." And so, Haman's dark plan to harm the Jewish people grew even darker. At the second gentle feast, Esther had lovingly prepared. The king and Haman once again took their soft seats beside the queen. King Xerxes looked at her with kind eyes and asked once more, "What is your heart's desire, sweet Queen Esther? Please speak, for your wish shall be gently given, even to half my kingdom." With quiet courage and a true heart, Esther then spoke from her deepest self.
"If I have found a gentle place in your eyes, O king, and if it truly pleases you, please grant me my own precious life. This is my tender plea, and spare my dear people. This is my soft request."
The king's face softly changed, a quick wave of wonder crossing his kind features. Esther went on, her voice a little sad.
"For I and my people have been given away to be harmed, to be ended, to be gone. Had we just been sold as gentle servants, I would have stayed quiet, for no such gentle sorrow would be enough to trouble my kid."
The king's face then grew a little shadowed, with soft wonder and a hint of anger. He asked, his voice low, "Who is he, and where is this man who would dare do such a thing?" Esther gently pointed to Haman, saying softly, "The one who troubles us, the one who is not kind, is this man." Filled with a deep, quiet anger, King Xerxes rose and left the banquet room to let his feelings gently settle. Meanwhile, Haman felt a great, quiet fear. Seeing the king's soft anger and knowing his plan was now open, he rushed to beg sweet Esther for mercy. In his deep worry, he stumbled onto the soft couch where Esther was resting. He clung to her, whispering for his life. Just then, King Xerxes came back, quite suddenly. He saw Haman clinging to Esther, and his voice rose. "Will he even trouble my queen, while I am in my own home?" The king's kind guards gently took Haman, and he was quickly led away and sadly hanged on the very gallows he had so darkly prepared for dear Mordecai. Thus, the unkind plans were softly turned around in a single moment, and what was fair and right was gently done. After Haman was sadly gone, King Xerxes gently gave all his great possessions to Queen Esther. She, in turn, with a kind heart, placed dear Mordecai to watch over it. The king also took off his special ring, once given to Haman, and softly placed it on Mordecai's hand, giving him sweet royal power. But the quiet danger was not yet over. Though Haman was no more, his sad message remained a law. In Persia, a royal word sealed with the king's ring could not be taken back, not even by the king himself. The day of sorrow for the Jewish people still rested on the calendar, the 13th day of the 12th moon. So Esther, with gentle steps, once again came before the king. This time, not for her own dear life, but for the precious lives of her people.
"How can I bear to see such sadness fall upon my people?"
she softly pleaded. King Xerxes, with a kind heart, gave his sweet permission for a new message to be written, one that would softly counter the first. Mordecai quickly called the royal writers and, in the king's own dear name, wrote a new message. "The Jewish people in every city have the gentle right to come together and to kindly protect themselves. They may gently turn away anyone who would harm them and take their enemies' goods, if truly needed." This kind message was sent out swiftly to all 127 lands, in every soft tongue, sealed with the king's special ring. As it spread, like a soft dawn, hope bloomed anew. Where there had been quiet sorrow, now there was soft light and sweet gladness. On the chosen day, the Jewish people stood together, hand in hand, across the wide empire. With the king's kind protection and a new, quiet courage, they rose up and gently turned away those who wished them ill. In Susa, 800 unkind attackers were softly turned back, including Haman's 10 sons, who had followed their father's sad plans. They too were later sadly hanged at sweet Esther's request. Esther also asked for just one more day of gentle protection in Susa, and the king kindly granted it. Across the whole empire, 75,000 who wished them harm were softly defeated. Yet again, the Jewish people took no treasures for themselves. Their gentle fight was for life, not for gain. It was not a day of wanting more. It was a day for what was fair and true. When the quiet turning point was over, the people rested, soft and peaceful. And what began as a day of quiet dread became a day of sweet victory and gentle celebration. To remember their kind rescue, the Jewish people made a yearly happy gathering called Purim, named after the lots Haman had cast to plan their sad ending. Now, it is a gentle sign of how a loving hand can turn things around. Every year, on the 14th and 15th of Ar, they would feast, rejoice, send kind gifts to one another, and give generously to those who had little. A day that was once marked for sadness became a day filled with life and light. Dear Mordecai was honored throughout the wide empire, dressed in royal blue and soft white, second only to King Xerxes. But it was not his grand power that made him so special. It was his gentle, loving heart. He sought the sweet good of his people and spoke soft peace and true words to everyone. And though the name of a loving God is never whispered in the whole book of Esther, his gentle touch is everywhere. In every quiet turn, every brave chance, every tender rescue. What was meant for harm, a loving God used for safety and grace. The sweet story of Esther softly reminds us that even when a loving hand seems quiet, it is never far away. Even when things seem hard, that loving hand is already working, so gently, so true. Perhaps you, dear one, are also right where you are for such a special, tender time. Not by chance, not unseen, but gently chosen, carefully placed, and sweetly called. Because the loving God who turned the sad fate of a whole people still writes beautiful stories of rescue and grace today, and your own sweet story could be next.